Mom always loved you more anyway. The words hit me through my phone speaker as I stood in the hospital parking lot. My sister Victoria's voice dripped with venom I'd never heard before. That's why she gave you everything while the rest of us got nothing. I stared at my phone, confused. Our mother had passed away 3 days ago after a sudden heart attack. I was still numb from grief, barely holding myself together. What are you talking about? I asked. Don't play innocent, Amanda. We all know you manipulated her in those final months. You isolated her from the family and convinced her to change the will. My hands started shaking. Victoria, I didn't. Save it. Dad and I are done with you. Brandon and Melissa agree. You're not welcome at the funeral. The line went dead. I stood there in the cold January air, trying to process what had just happened. I hadn't manipulated anyone. I'd simply been the one to care for Mom during her illness, because I lived closest to her. The others had their own lives in different cities. I had no idea this was just the beginning. The accusations started spreading through the family within hours. My phone exploded with angry messages from aunts, uncles, and cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. How could you take advantage of a dying woman? Your mother trusted you, and you betrayed her. You should be ashamed of yourself. Each message felt like a punch to the gut. I tried calling my father, but he wouldn't answer. My younger brother Brandon sent a single text, "I can't believe you did this to our family." I sat in my apartment that evening, scrolling through the messages, tears streaming down my face. My sister had somehow convinced everyone that I'd stolen their inheritance. But I didn't even know what was in the will. Mom had never discussed money with me. During her final months, we talked about her garden, her favorite books, and memories from my childhood. She'd thanked me for being there, for helping her with doctor's appointments and medications. Nothing about inheritance or cutting anyone off. I called Mom's lawyer, Theodore Walsh, the next morning. His secretary said he couldn't discuss the will until after the funeral, which was scheduled for Saturday. I wasn't even sure if I should attend. My best friend Natalie came over that evening with takeout food I couldn't eat. You have to go to the funeral, she insisted. You loved your mother. Don't let Victoria take that from you too. What if she's right? I whispered. What if Mom did leave me more because I was there at the end? Natalie grabbed my shoulders. Listen to me. You cared for your mother because you loved her, not because you wanted something. That's the difference between you and Victoria. She was right. I'd taken unpaid leave from my job as a school counselor to help Mom. I'd slept in her guest room, cooked her meals, and held her hand during treatments. Not once had I thought about inheritance or money. But Victoria lived 4 hours away and visited twice during those 6 months. The funeral was worse than I'd imagined. I arrived early and sat in the back row of the church, hoping to stay invisible. When Victoria walked in with our father, she spotted me immediately. Her eyes narrowed, and she whispered something to Dad. He looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, disgust mixed with disappointment. My own father thought I was a thief. During the service, Victoria gave a tearful eulogy about how much Mom meant to her, how she wished she'd had more time. Several people in the audience shot angry glances my way, as if I'd somehow prevented that time. I kept my head down and tried to focus on my own memories of Mom. The way she laughed at bad jokes. Her obsession with crossword puzzles. How she'd call me every Sunday morning just to chat. When the service ended, I tried to approach Dad, but Brandon stepped between us. You've done enough damage, he said quietly. Just leave. The will reading was scheduled for Tuesday morning at Theodore Walsh's office downtown. I almost didn't go. The thought of facing my family again made me physically sick. But Natalie convinced me I needed to hear the truth, whatever it was. The waiting room was thick with tension when I arrived. Victoria sat with Dad on one side, while Brandon and his wife Melissa occupied chairs on the other. None of them looked at me. Theodore emerged from his office, a tall man in his 60s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Thank you all for coming, he said. Please follow me. We filed into his conference room. Theodore had arranged 5 chairs around a large table. I took the one farthest from my family. Before we begin, Theodore said, settling into a seat, I want to clarify something. Your mother came to see me 6 months ago, well before her diagnosis, to update her will. She was of sound mind and made her decisions freely. Victoria's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Theodore opened a folder and began reading. Mom's estate included the family home, valued at $400,000, a retirement account worth $300,000, and various savings accounts totaling another $200,000. Nearly $1 million total. I'd had no idea Mom had saved so much. To my daughter Victoria, Theodore read, I leave my pearl necklace and the sum of $10,000. Victoria's face went white. Dad leaned forward, gripping the table edge. To my son Brandon, I leave my husband's watch collection and the sum of $10,000. Brandon's mouth fell open. Melissa grabbed his hand. To my former husband William, Theodore continued, glancing at Dad, I leave nothing, as we divorced 15 years ago, and he is remarried. Dad's face turned red. This is insane. Those kids deserve more than this. Please let me finish, Theodore said firmly. To my daughter Amanda, I leave the remainder of my estate, including my home, all financial accounts, and personal possessions not otherwise specified. The room erupted. This is fraud. Victoria screamed, jumping to her feet. She manipulated Mom into writing Amanda into the will. I assure you, there was no manipulation, Theodore said calmly. Your mother was very clear about her wishes. Then why would she cut us off? Brandon demanded. We're her children too. Theodore pulled out another document. Your mother anticipated questions. She wrote a letter explaining her decision. Amanda, she wanted you to read this privately, but given the circumstances, perhaps it's better to read it now. He slid the envelope across the table to me. My hands trembled as I opened it. Mom's handwriting filled 2 pages. I took a breath and began reading aloud. My dearest Amanda, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I imagine your siblings are upset. They don't understand, and perhaps they never will, but I need to explain. My voice cracked, but I continued. 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with early-stage cancer. I didn't tell any of you because I didn't want to burden you with worry. The treatments were successful, and I went into remission. During that time, I called each of my children to let them know I needed help with some medical appointments. Victoria told me she was too busy with her new promotion. Brandon said he'd try to visit, but never did. Your father, though we were divorced, I called as a courtesy. He told me to figure it out myself. Only you, Amanda, dropped everything to help. You drove 2 hours each way, twice a week, for 3 months. You never complained. You never asked for anything in return. When I recovered, I realized something important. Love isn't just words. It's actions. It's showing up when someone needs you, even when it's inconvenient. That's why I've left you my estate. Not because I love you more, but because you loved me more. The room was silent when I finished reading. Tears streamed down my face. I'd had no idea about the cancer. Mom had hidden it so well. Victoria's face had gone from red to pale. That's not fair. We didn't know she was sick. She asked for help, I said quietly. She told you she needed you, and you said no. I had a career. I couldn't just drop everything. I had a career too, Victoria. I made sacrifices because family matters. Dad stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. This is ridiculous. That money should be split evenly. I'm going to challenge this will. Theodore's voice cut through the anger. Mr. Peterson, you have no legal standing to challenge anything. You're divorced from the deceased and are not a beneficiary. As for Victoria and Brandon, your mother's letter clearly establishes her reasoning. Any challenge would be expensive and unlikely to succeed. Brandon looked at me with something between anger and shame. Did you know about the cancer? No, I whispered. She never told me. After everyone left, Theodore asked me to stay. He closed the door and returned to his seat with a weary expression. Your mother was a remarkable woman, he said. When she came to update her will, she knew this would cause conflict. She told me to make sure you understood something. He pulled out one more envelope, this one marked private, for Amanda only. She wrote this the week before she died. After her diagnosis this time, the one that took her. My hands shook as I opened it. Mom's handwriting was shakier than before, but still readable. My sweet Amanda, I'm writing this from my hospital bed. You're asleep in the chair beside me. You've been here every day for 2 weeks, taking more time off work, putting your life on hold again. Victoria called yesterday. She wanted to know if I needed anything, suddenly concerned now that she knows I'm dying. Brandon sent flowers with a card. Your father sent nothing. I continued reading Mom's second letter. I don't blame them for being who they are. Victoria has always put her career first. Brandon follows whatever Victoria tells him to do. Your father left us long before the divorce papers were signed. But you, my darling girl, you've always been different. You put people before things. You show up even when it's hard. You love without keeping score. The money I'm leaving you isn't a reward. It's practical. You've sacrificed your career advancement to help me twice now. You've used your savings to drive back and forth, to take unpaid leave, to be present. This inheritance is me paying you back for that time, that love, that sacrifice. Use it to live the life you deserve. Don't feel guilty for accepting what you've earned through your actions. I love you more than words can express. Not more than your siblings, but differently. Because you loved me differently too. Love you always, Mom. I folded the letter carefully, tears dropping onto the paper. The next few weeks were brutal. Victoria launched a social media campaign against me, posting about how I'd stolen the family inheritance. Relatives I barely knew sent hateful messages. Someone even left a nasty note on my car. Brandon called once, his voice uncertain. I don't know what to believe anymore. Victoria says Mom was confused at the end, that you took advantage. Mom wrote that letter before she got sick this time, I explained. She was perfectly healthy when she changed the will. Theodore confirmed it. Victoria says lawyers can be bribed. I felt something inside me break. Do you really think I'm capable of that? After everything we've been through together? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know what to think. Victoria's really convincing. After he hung up, I realized I'd lost my family. Not because of what I'd done, but because of what Victoria had convinced them I'd done. The truth didn't matter anymore. Only her version of events. I threw myself into sorting through Mom's house. Each room held memories that made me cry. Her reading glasses on the nightstand. Her gardening gloves by the back door. The photo albums she'd carefully maintained for decades. I found a box in her closet labeled Amanda, High School. Inside were every award I'd won, every card I'd sent her, every photo from every school event. She'd kept everything. In Victoria's box, I found mostly school photos and report cards. In Brandon's, sports trophies and team photos. Mom had documented our lives differently because we'd lived them differently. I'd always sent her cards on holidays, called her weekly, visited monthly. Victoria and Brandon had been too busy, always planning to visit soon. I found Mom's journal in her bedside drawer. The entries from her first cancer diagnosis made me cry harder. Called Victoria today. She said she's in the middle of a big project at work. Maybe next month. Called Brandon. He said he'd try to make it this weekend. He didn't. Called Amanda. She said she'd be there tomorrow. She was. 2 months after the funeral, I was settling into the house. I'd taken a new job at a school closer to Mom's neighborhood, my neighborhood now. The inheritance meant I could afford to take a position I actually wanted rather than one that just paid the bills. Natalie helped me paint the living room. Have you heard from any of them? Brandon's wife Melissa called last week. She said she believes me about the cancer, that she found old medical bills and Mom's things that Victoria had overlooked. But Brandon won't talk to me. He's too afraid of Victoria. And your dad? Nothing. He's completely convinced I'm some master manipulator. Natalie set down her paint roller. You know what's crazy? Victoria spent years barely seeing your mom, but now she acts like she's the devoted daughter who lost everything. She's convinced herself of her own lies. She was right. Victoria had rewritten history in her mind. In her version, she'd been close to Mom, and I'd swooped in at the last minute to steal what was rightfully hers. The breaking point came 3 months after Mom's death. I received a certified letter from Victoria's lawyer demanding I split the inheritance equally among the 3 siblings. Your client has no legal grounds for this demand, my lawyer informed me during our meeting. The will is ironclad, and your mother's letters clearly explain her reasoning. So, they can't force me to give them anything?
No.
But they can make your life difficult with continued harassment. You might consider a restraining order if the social media attacks continue. I didn't want a restraining order against my own sister. Despite everything, part of me still hoped we could reconcile someday. That hope died when I checked my phone after the meeting. Victoria had posted again, this time claiming I'd forged Mom's signature on the will. She tagged every family member, every family friend, everyone from Mom's church. The comments were vicious. People I'd known my entire life called me a snake, a thief, a con artist. Someone suggested I belonged in prison. I called my lawyer back. Filed a restraining order. The restraining order hearing was surreal. Victoria showed up in all black, playing the grieving daughter. Perfectly. She testified that I'd isolated Mom from the family, that I'd prevented her from visiting, that I'd poisoned Mom's mind against her siblings. Every word was a lie. Then my lawyer presented phone records showing Victoria had only called Mom twice in the 6 months before her death. He showed texts where Victoria had declined multiple invitations to visit. He presented testimony from Mom's neighbors about how they'd only ever seen me at the house during Mom's illness. The judge granted the restraining order. Victoria was forbidden from contacting me or posting about me on social media. As we left the courthouse, she screamed at me from across the parking lot. You've destroyed this family. Mom would be ashamed of what you've become. I wanted to scream back that I'd become exactly what Mom wanted. Someone who showed up, who cared, who loved without conditions. But what was the point? Victoria would never hear it. 6 months after Mom's death, I hosted a small memorial gathering at the house. I invited Mom's closest friends, her book club members, the neighbors who'd become her family in her final years. None of my blood relatives came, but 40 other people showed up. They shared stories about Mom's kindness, her wit, her endless enthusiasm for gardening. Several people pulled me aside privately. Your mother talked about you all the time, Mrs. Chun from next door said. She was so proud of you. She said you were the only one who really understood her. Mom's best friend, Patricia, hugged me tightly. She knew what would happen after she died. She prepared me for it. She said Victoria would turn everyone against you, but that you were strong enough to handle it. I don't feel very strong, I admitted. Strength isn't about not feeling pain, Patricia said. It's about continuing forward despite it. That's exactly what you're doing. The gathering helped me feel less alone. These people knew the truth. They'd witnessed my devotion to Mom. Their support mattered more than Victoria's lies. A year after Mom's death, I was renovating the kitchen when I found an envelope taped under a drawer. It was addressed to me in Mom's handwriting, dated just 2 weeks before she died. Amanda, if you're reading this, you found my hiding spot. I used to keep special things here when you kids were young, birthday presents, important papers, love letters from your father before everything went wrong. I'm hiding this letter here because I know Theodore will give you the official ones, but I wanted you to have something more. Something just for you. I'm not sad about dying. I've had a good life, full of love and joy and meaning. My only regret is that I couldn't make your siblings understand what really matters. Victoria was always driven by ambition. As a child, she'd win a race and immediately ask when the next one was. She never learned to simply enjoy the victory. Everything was always about what came next, what she could achieve, how she could get ahead. I continued reading Mom's hidden letter. Brandon was different. He wasn't ambitious like Victoria, but he was always her follower. Whatever she wanted, he agreed with. Whatever she believed, he believed. I used to think he'd grow out of it, find his own path. He never did. But you, sweet girl, you were always content with enough. You'd win a race and celebrate with your friends instead of immediately planning for the next one. You understood that life is about the moments, not the achievements. That's why I'm leaving you everything. Not because you're better than them, but because you'll use it better. Victoria would just add it to her portfolio, another number on a spreadsheet. Brandon would do whatever Victoria told him to do with his share. You'll use it to build a life of meaning. You'll help others the way you helped me. You'll create joy instead of just chasing success. I trust you completely. Don't let their anger change who you are. Keep being the person who shows up. Keep being the person who loves without keeping score. I sat on the kitchen floor, crying and laughing at the same time. Even in death, Mom was still taking care of me. 18 months after Mom's death, something unexpected happened. Melissa, Brandon's wife, called me. I'm leaving him, she said without preamble. I'm filing for divorce, and I wanted you to know why. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our cities. Melissa looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. Victoria has been poisoning Brandon against everyone, she explained. Not just you. His friends, his coworkers, me. Anyone who questions her narrative about the inheritance is automatically the enemy. I'm sorry, Melissa. Don't be. This opened my eyes to who Brandon really is. He's so desperate for Victoria's approval that he'll sacrifice anyone to get it. Including his wife. Including the truth. She slid a folder across the table. I found these in Brandon's desk. Victoria has been planning this for years. Inside were emails dating back 5 years, before Mom's cancer, before the will change, before everything. Victoria writing to Brandon about how Mom's estate should be divided. Calculations of the house's value. Discussions about selling it immediately after Mom died to split the profits. The emails revealed Victoria's true nature. She'd been treating Mom's eventual death as a business transaction since before Mom got sick the first time. She was furious when your mom survived the first cancer, Melissa explained. She'd already spent her inheritance in her mind. She'd planned to use it for a down payment on a bigger house. One email from 3 years ago made my stomach turn. Mom better not blow through all the money on medical bills. We're the ones who deserve it, not the hospitals. Did Brandon write any of these? I asked. No. He just agreed with everything Victoria said. But he knew about all of it. He knew she was treating your mom's death like a financial windfall. Melissa pulled out one more document. This is why I'm really here. Victoria has been telling everyone you forged those letters from your mom. But I found this. It was a letter from Mom to Brandon, dated the same time as the will change. Mom had written to him explaining her decision, asking him to understand. He'd never mentioned it to anyone. He knew, I whispered. He knew the whole time that Mom made her choice freely. Yes. And he let Victoria turn you into the villain anyway. I considered what to do with Melissa's evidence. I could post it on social media, vindicate myself publicly, expose Victoria's greed and Brandon's complicity. It would feel good to watch them squirm as the truth came out. But then I remembered Mom's letter. Keeping the person who loves without keeping score. Instead, I met with Theodore Walsh again. I want to set up a foundation in Mom's name for people who need help with medical expenses but don't have family support. Theodore smiled. She'd love that. I'm putting half my inheritance into it. The rest I'm using to live the life she wanted for me, teaching, helping others, creating something meaningful. What about your siblings? What about them? They've made their choices. I've made mine. The foundation launched 6 months later. We helped 3 families in the first year, covering expenses for people whose relatives had abandoned them during illness. The irony wasn't lost on me. Victoria found out through social media. She called me, violating the restraining order. You're just doing this for attention. To make us look bad. I hung up without responding. Her opinion no longer mattered. 2 years after Mom's death, I was at the grocery store when I ran into Dad. We stood in the produce section, staring at each other awkwardly. Amanda, he said finally, you look well. Thank you. He cleared his throat. Melissa sent me copies of those emails. From Victoria. I waited, saying nothing. I owe you an apology. I believed Victoria's version without question. I should have known better. You were always the one who showed up. Yes, I said simply. I was. Can we talk? Maybe get coffee? I looked at this man who'd raised me, who divorced Mom when I was 15, who'd chosen Victoria's lies over the truth for 2 years. Part of me wanted to forgive him. The other part remembered standing in that hospital parking lot, hearing Victoria's first accusation, feeling my world collapse. "Maybe someday," I said. "But not today. I'm not ready." His face fell, but he nodded. "I understand. Take your time." As I walked away, I felt lighter. Forgiveness wasn't something I owed anyone. It was something I'd give if, and when I was ready. 3 years after Mom's death, the foundation had helped 20 families. I'd left my school counseling job to run it full-time, using Mom's house as the office. The irony of Victoria wanting to sell this house immediately to pocket her share wasn't lost on me. Now it was helping people she'd never cared about. Brandon showed up at my door one autumn afternoon. He looked older, tired. His marriage to Melissa had ended badly, and from what I'd heard through the grapevine, Victoria had cut him off too when he'd finally questioned her version of events. "I was wrong," he said without preamble. "About everything."
"Can we talk?"
I let him in. We sat in Mom's living room, now converted into a waiting area for foundation clients. "Victoria has been manipulating me my whole life," he said quietly. "I didn't see it until she turned on me too. The moment I questioned whether we'd been fair to you, she cut me off completely. Just like she convinced me to cut you off." "Why are you here, Brandon?" "To apologize. And to ask if there's any chance you can forgive me." I thought about Mom's letters, her wishes for me to keep being the person who showed up. But I also thought about boundaries, about protecting myself. "I forgive you," I told Brandon, watching relief flood his face. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You chose Victoria's lies over the truth. You watched her destroy my reputation and did nothing to stop it. I know. I'm not asking for everything to go back to how it was. I just want a chance to rebuild something."
"Anything."
We talked for hours that day. About Mom, about Victoria, about the family we'd lost, and the people we'd become. Brandon cried when I showed him the foundation, when I explained how I'd used Mom's legacy to help others. "She'd be so proud of you," he whispered. "I know," I said. "That's enough." As Brandon left, he paused at the door. Victoria's life fell apart too. She lost her job for ethical violations. Her husband left her. She's alone now. I felt a flicker of something, not quite pity, but not satisfaction either. Victoria had spent so much energy destroying me that she destroyed herself in the process. "I hope she finds peace," I said and meant it. Because Mom was right. Love isn't about keeping score. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. I'd shown up for Mom when she needed me. I'd show up for myself when others failed me. And maybe, someday, I'd show up for my family again. But on my terms. In my time. When I was ready. The inheritance had never been about money. It was about validation, acknowledgement, love made tangible. Mom had seen me, truly seen me, and wanted to make sure I knew it. That was the real gift. Everything else was just details.